people figured that out ages ago, like centuries, millennia ago, like ancient Babylon shit. But now today we're at a time where for the first time in history, it's not just that we have gold, metals, physical currencies are pretty rad, and they do a lot for sort of like democratizing commerce in like a way that the various versions of fiat currencies throughout history have not. But now that we have a technological currency that's based just on mathematics, that is inherently ungovernable and uncontrollable. And even if so there are like conspiracy theories that like there's ETHgate, and then there's conspiracy theories that Bitcoin was like a CIA operation and everything. And it's like, even if those are true, the technology itself is just the idea. It's just the inherent idea that mathematics makes the most sound type of money there is, and it's irreplaceable, and it can always be spun up again, even though I don't think Bitcoin is I think that Bitcoin is exactly what we need. And so regardless of what these big power players try to do with our currency cycle moving forwards, the cat's already out of the bag. And the only way that they could stop the crypto, the decentralization of currency control would be at gunpoint all over the world simultaneously with an iron fist. And it's like, that's not going to happen. It's just not possible. So I don't think that we're going to a world where it's like Bitcoin is the currency and the only currency. I don't think that's going to happen by any means, but I certainly think we're going to a world where Bitcoin is like the currency. And there are lots of other currencies, I'm sure. There will be lots of cryptocurrencies. I bet there will be government fiat currencies still of various sorts, even though we're about to watch a lot of those crash and burn. I mean, hell, maybe we'll go to an all Bitcoin and digital currency based situation. But regardless of what happens, Bitcoin is out of the bag, and there's no putting that back in the bag.
No, there isn't. And when you factor in the fact that Bitcoin exists, it's out of the bag. It's been around for 15 years. You layer on the digital age, particularly communication, social media, content distribution, like we're doing now. This will go on podcasts, YouTube, Rumble. It's just going to get out there and it'll be easily accessible to other people. Like the fact that we can coordinate on the internet, and then you layer on like the debt situation globally. And it seems like to me, particularly post-COVID, that the prevailing forces that are either fighting each other or working with each other at different points in time have completely lost control. And I think it's mainly a factor of the digital age and the fact that we can all communicate. And when you begin to really internalize the amount of debt out there, and the fact that the US Treasury market and the US dollar are overt Ponzi schemes that will never be paid back, or the debt won't be made whole. And the currency has to hyperinflate to service the debt. And so both are pretty much screwed at the end of the day. And if I'm actually sitting in these positions of power and you're losing control, I think the path of least resistance to avoid social upheaval and something like a French Revolution, which I don't think anybody wants to see, many people will LARP about it, like we need a French Revolution, but I don't think people really understand the history of how terrible it was.
Yeah, it's not the way.
But if I'm in a position of power and you see Bitcoin is here and you have these massive debt problems, and you want a quote unquote soft landing, like the path of least resistance is to just let it flourish. And by let it flourish, I mean, just let people use it, and then fix the inherent problems that exist throughout the global economy that were created by fiat. There will be a lot of repricing in debt markets and in asset markets. People will be scooping up things for pennies on the dollar. But the fact that Bitcoin exists is actually a great escape route for this power structure that is, to me, obviously lost control.
That's a really good point. And I think that a lot of people try to address this question of will there be Bitcoin adoption by the mainstream? I think a lot of people always want...
River's the best place to buy Bitcoin. Go to river.com/TFTC, sign up today, set up an account, and start stacking sats. Back to the video.
To happen instantly, obviously. They want easy answers that are instantaneous. And especially in finance, it's like regular people, myself included, before I had started to learn more, it's so easy to look at the financial world and assume that a thing would happen in a month, like that people would see that this is happening and like they would shift, but it's inherently not the way. Like a lot of types of trades and contracts take years, but then a lot of like the power structures that are holding on to the legacy systems are like 70-year-old men that don't want to give up their power and aren't smart enough to realize what you just said. And then there's like a lot of 50-year-olds in there, 60-year-olds that are starting to get the picture of like, yeah, the writing is on the wall. But I think that it will take a certain dying off of the stubborn elders of the system, combined with sort of like a rising up of the more progressively minded, or at least open-minded youngers of the time, to sort of fully enact that shift. Because I think inherently there's a lot of like dinosaurs in politics and finance right now that just could never even begin to grasp that Bitcoin even is an option for them to get out of their predicament. Let alone accept that truth as sort of like a accepting defeat in some ways. But it's inevitable. And like, I think that what you just described is actually like such a cogent take on it, that there isn't another way out. Like you could try to invent a new fiat currency and lie to everyone as though it wasn't just another fiat currency, but the cat's kind of out of the bag now.
Yeah. And it's again, are you going to go to the arsonist to put out the fire? I mean, that's another thing I try to highlight, particularly for people who are extremely politically engaged and fall into the trap and the false framing, I would argue, of partisan politics, red team versus blue team. It's like you are wasting your time and your energy and to meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's one big uniparty system, potentially controlled by intelligence agencies and a bureaucratic system that's been erected over decades that really doesn't change at all with a new president or a majority in Congress or the Senate. And like just focus on things that you can actually control. Like Bitcoin is a vote in a sense, and that you're voting like, hey, I don't want to operate in this fiat system.